We're about to do a 7-mile hike. I'm so excited. This is just the beginning too. I just want to say I'm just so grateful to be here. It's so cute and pretty here. And the terrain is a lot different than I feel like what we've experienced since being in Colorado.
Here's the beautiful thing about Colorado. Every place you go, this is from our experience this far, but it's just such versatile landscapes,
Such
versatile trees,
Oh my
versatile ground. You go from like a red clay to like you're at the beach.
yes,
So much to explore.
so much. It's kind of insane. And the fact that we have water right next to us is super cool.
Yeah. The amount of like streams that we've explored so far.
Yes.
For real. Ooh, it's starting to get like more enchanted forest vibes.
Yeah, super cute. I'm excited.
We're out here in Colorado. It's a beautiful day. It's starting to cool off a little bit.
It is.
The fall is underway, no doubt, but we're also savoring the last bits of summer. Not feeling the best energy these last maybe 24 to 48 hours, so I'm kind of hoping that this hike can act as a cleanse and start to feel better progressively throughout. No doubt it's going to be a little exhausting at parts, but I feel like that's how we defeat demons, exhaust them, right? To it.
Oh, yo.
Oh, that's not my coffee. Oh.
All right. All right. It's a wonderful.
Hello.
Hello.
The main reason that we're starting this channel is to create more of an awareness and focus around health and well-being.
Because we feel like it's very, very important.
Nothing's more important than health and well-being, because at the end of the day, I feel like people want things. In reality, they just want to feel good. It's like, why do we want anything? Because the having of it would make us feel better, or so we tell ourselves. We just want to feel good. When we start to put our health and well-being first and feel good, then we start to attract everything that is meant for us. Everything that gives us that wholeness and abundance that is a part of being a human in this universe. So let's get into our first topic of this channel, which is how to process negative emotions. I feel like it's a very important topic for us to talk about because it was never taught. I think it's very important to have a general idea of how to go about navigating these intense negative emotions when they arise. Because they can get messy.
I feel like when negative emotions arise, it can kind of overtake you. You don't want to be that kid that acts out of anger.
Because at the end of the day, I feel like it does kind of source back to being non-reactive.
Right. Being more responsive than reactive.
I feel like there's a lot of truth in saying that, you know, as humans, we're going to react. But it's more so how we recollect ourselves and respond after reacting. So that being said, negative emotions are entities in themselves. You know, that energy is very specific to each human being based on their conditioning and their memories and past lives. However, I believe that each one of these emotions and energies in themselves have a very specific entity to it, a very specific personality to it. That can kind of be a mutual seeing across the board of humanity.
Yeah.
That being said, I feel like processing emotions is entirely dependent upon your relationship with that emotion. So everybody has a different relationship with an emotion based upon you know, their conditioning, how they were brought up, and what they struggled with most as a child. At the end of the day, I feel like it's all about the surrender. You kind of have to surrender to these energies and emotions that come up.
Right. I feel like when I think about anger, and times that I've been angry, I feel like something that really helps me is just like slowing down.
Yeah.
Because I feel like anger is a very fast-paced emotion.
I feel you, yeah, absolutely.
And it's like you said, you get charged up.
Yeah.
And then like
you're going a million miles an hour and just can't find the brake.
Right. And so I feel like when you're angry, like it's very, at least for me, important to like
breathe.
Just take a deep breath.
Yeah.
I feel like just one breath, like one deep breath helps so much in that moment, and then just kind of relaxing yourself a little bit.
Sure.
Because if not, you can kind of get like straight away and then, you know, like I said, like lash out.
Well, I feel like it's interesting because these energies and emotions are so intense sometimes, you know? And to not be overtaken by them can be like the most challenging things we experience as humans.
Oh my God, yeah.
Just because it's just this momentum that's going like full blast, and you have to just sit there and weather that storm and just be at your core.
Right.
Your core essence, which is that still presence that is aware of the energy movement, that emotion, energy emotion, but does not budge.
Right.
You know, and that's something that needs to be practiced. So anything we talk about today as far as like techniques to incorporate when experiencing these things are just this practice of how you can maintain and stand your ground in spite of these intense experiences.
Right. And I feel like with practicing more and more, you become closer to like knowing how to come at these things when they arise.
Right.
You know?
Right. Because I feel like the other day I practiced, you know, being with this energy all day long, but then I would continuously get to these breaking points where it's just like, oh my God, I've weathered this storm nonstop, because it really is this just nonstop push.
Yeah.
It's this nonstop push. It's just this nudge that keeps going and going. There's these waves that just keep, you know, hitting you.
Yeah. Well, the other day, I didn't tell you this, but when we were at the garden working, I just like got so overwhelmed, like everything was just like, and I like couldn't breathe. And so I went into the car and I was just like, I need to get into a comfortable space right now where I'm just like by myself and I can just like experience this right now.
Yeah.
So I went to the car and I just like started crying.
Right.
Just started crying.
I do feel like it is super important to be by yourself in those moments.
Yeah.
Because one, you don't want to like dish out that energy to anyone else. And when you dish it out to someone else, I feel like it totally perpetuates this emotion, and you know, it keeps it around for longer and gives it strength.
To like bounce, like
because it
somehow
keeps bouncing off of two people.
Exactly.
So it's like, all right, you gotta recognize this emotion's getting more and more intense.
Right.
I need to separate myself.
Slow down.
Slow down.
Be on your own. Be comfortable.
Yes.
Go somewhere where you feel comfortable and just.
I find when I'm experiencing emotions, I find mirrors extremely helpful. To just go in the bathroom by myself, close the door, and just like really look at myself in the mirror. Because not only do I become more aware of the energy that I'm working with, I feel like the shower is a great place for this too. It's just a great like place to reflect on what's going on within you.
It's a very comforting place.
Yeah.
The shower.
Because you feel very free to express.
You're isolated. You're by yourself. You're like on your own.
Right.
And nobody's bothering. No one's gonna bother you in the shower.
And
you know?
And on top of that, why are we experiencing these energies and emotions in the first place? It's because they don't feel seen. You know, you always get that sense that like this part of you that's struggling and hurting and in pain just wants to be seen and recognized.
Yeah, it's gonna keep tugging at you. It's gonna keep tugging at you, and that's when you start to break because you're
So is being around other people the best way for that energy to be seen? I would hope not, because if it is, then it's going to be seen through you vomiting that energy onto another person.
Yeah.
And not that we're trying to avoid that, but we're trying to navigate these experiences in a way that we don't have to explode on someone else, or we don't have to dish out our sadness on someone else.
Right. You never want to project something onto somebody else and have them like be like, wait, whoa.
I feel like it's important to remember that we are responsible for seeing this emotion, not anyone else.
Exactly.
And in that sense, it is best to almost isolate yourself a little bit so you can express that, become familiar with that voice.
And I feel like there are people in your life that are gonna be like, oh, I recognize that you are upset or angry or this, and I'm here for you. But I think it's also very important, like you said, to really isolate yourself and, you know, kind of be your own like best friend in that moment.
I love that you say that about being your own best friend in that moment, because there was this time where, you know, I talked about demons as if they were like separate from us. Demons as if they're some of these like scary monsters that could really like mess up your life, really, you know, create the worst for you. And the more I get to know what that word truly means, you know, what a demon truly represents. I fully feel like I'm starting to realize that demons are just like the most vulnerable part of us.
Yeah, I feel like when I think of a demon, I thought of like a lost soul, but then it just like grasps onto anything it can to like stay alive for some reason.
Yeah, and it's like there is this greater whole of us, this greater part of us that is so certain and secure in itself.
And pure. And
but then, in considering such and being human, there's going to be these smaller parts of us that are confused, lost, alone, have no idea where this vessel's going. And so in that sense, when that voice comes up, that is that insecureness, that is that questioning voice, that confusion. I think that was the main word I'm searching for, because I feel like that's usually what comes up for me is confusion. But when that voice comes up, I feel like I'm now starting to recognize it as one of my demons.
Right.
And a demon, like that word evokes like such intensity.
Yeah, it does.
It's very powerful. It's a powerful word. But in reality, I feel like a demon is synonymous to just a part of you that needs security, needs to be heard, felt, and reassured.
Right. Yeah, it's just like it's like the kid that you neglected for so long, and now it's like a sad little boy, you know?
Right.
And it's like it just wants to be heard.
Right.
So it's like this little demon, but it's not a negative thing. Like it's not a bad.
God, no.
It's not a bad kid. It's just somebody who needs some help, and like coming back in. And I feel like that's what we're doing is like bringing ourselves back into the light.
Absolutely. I feel like the most straightforward way to put that is there's nothing wrong with demons. They just don't feel that great.
Yeah.
They don't feel that great when they come into your field of awareness, into your experience. And in that sense, like anything that, this whole channel, the whole purpose behind what we're doing is to create an awareness around how important it is to get to a place where you're feeling good consistently.
Yeah.
Your well-being is priority.
Yes.
Priority over making money.
Yeah.
Priority over your experiences, anything. Because everything that you generate, everything that you manifest and create is going to be grown out of the energy you're rocking.
Yeah.
So what kind of soil do you want to use? What kind of soil do you want to grow with?
Right.
A rich soil feels great or not so great. And the flowers that blossom out of that soil will be a reflection of that energy.
Right. In other terms, you want to build your foundation stronger.
Build your foundation stronger. I feel like if we just stuck to that, like let's just get our foundation right. Let's just get our core right.
Right.
And I feel like that's what this channel will be solely based on.
Yes.
It's like, how do you get that core right?
Right. And I think another thing that plays into this whole thing is your ego. Because your ego is that thing telling you like, oh no, interact with this. Not the most positive. When I think of ego, I think of control, power, like, those things. So I feel like it's very, very good to be aware of your ego in these situations when they're arising. Are you acting from a place of your ego, or is it your soul, And I feel like that's what we need to become more aware of and closer to, is knowing the difference between those two voices.
Right.
Because they are very different, but also very similar.
Right.
And sometimes in those situations where your emotions are getting the best of you, it's easy to act out of your ego.
Right.
And that's when things get out of hand.
Well, I feel like that boils down to just knowing that free will does exist.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And choice does exist.
Always.
And you're always choosing. You're always making choices.
Always. Every day. Every second.
And too many of our choices are subconscious, unfortunately.
Yes.
But that's why we need to just practice on making more conscious choices, because once you realize that you can choose to feel good, then you'll never choose not to feel good.
Right. You gotta have a light bulb though moment, I feel.
Yes.
Like everyone has their own experience, but until you're like, oh wait, this is what it feels like to feel this good, you're like, oh, I always want to feel this good,
Right.
So then like going forward, I feel like you'll want to.
Well, and at the end of the day, I feel like anyone who's extremely conscious or aware, at the end of the day, is just kind of craving peace. And so at the end of the day, you just crave peace.
Right, I feel like peace is this neutral state of being. where it's like you're just blissed out, you're not super happy or super sad, you just are.
Yeah.
And you get to really just relax and just be,
Right.
you know, at your core, like you're just being.
You're not you don't have your weight on anything.
Nah.
You have all your weight. You're keeping all your weight. You're keeping all your energy centered.
Yeah, you're kind of like we've talked about before. You're a blank canvas.
Yeah.
You're just kind of at this blank canvas
and
stage.
and that's not to say that like thoughts and energy aren't gonna come up.
No, and when they do, it's like, okay, say a great thought comes in, ooh, it feels good, like, okay, I'll hold on to it for a little bit, okay, and then it'll slowly go away.
Right.
But like just being like that blank neutral canvas where you can just be the observer in the most like neutral sense,
Mm-hmm.
and say a negative thought comes up, and you're like, oh, okay, that doesn't feel that good, it's okay. It's gonna pass.
I feel like I went through this time period where I was trying too hard to be the observer.
Yeah.
Like I was like just too intense with it to the point that I was giving myself a headache.
Right. That can be kind of like straining on your mental, I feel, like on your mind or your
I feel
brain.
like you shouldn't have to try super hard to be the observer.
No.
I feel like being the observer is just like, because thinking can be fun.
Oh my god,
Thinking
yeah.
can be fun.
I feel like when people say be the observer, now I think about it, I'm like, be neutral. Just be neutral.
Don't don't react.
Yeah, just be neutral.
Don't go with these energies that try to pull you with them.
Right. If your siblings, right? They come at you, they're like, I have this problem, and your other siblings like, I have this problem. You're just there.
Right.
You don't like support one side or have an opinion. You're just there. You're like
And you don't-
understanding both sides.
And you don't have stuff of your own. I'll call it stuff because
Yeah.
it's like
Excess
everybody
stuff.
is walking around with stuff. You know, so just don't walk around with stuff.
Right.
Let go of all your stuff.
Right.
Which is easier said than done.
Yeah, I was just gonna say
Stuff's
that.
gonna come up, but
Right.
I feel like it's just a world of difference between intentionally not having anything,
Mm-hmm.
not having any stuff, and indulging in all of these human worldly issues.
Right.
Going back to what we were talking about with processing emotions being entirely based on our relationship with that emotion, like each individual's relationship with emotion. We could spend a whole episode talking about anxiety
Right.
because that's my favorite emotion, because it's the one that I struggle with the most.
Right.
I believe that from observing my own behavior,
Yeah.
I cling to sadness. Anxiety, I run away from. Anxiety, I try to get rid of. I try to avoid it.
Right.
And I've gotten better. I know that.
That's good.
Rewind 2 years ago,
Yeah.
I've gotten so much better.
Yeah. I feel like I've seen you evolve.
Yeah, and that's natural. That's
Right.
natural. All healing's natural. All evolution is natural.
Right.
but-
And you're not gonna ever solve. There's no solving in these times. Like emotions aren't solvable.
That's such a great point, because I feel like that was a part of my biggest pitfalls.
Oh my god! Like you're trying to get rid of this emotion.
You're just trying to like get to the bottom of it. You're like,
Right.
give yourself something to trace it back to, but don't trip up on it.
Right.
You know?
Like you just gotta accept all of it.
Yes. Processing emotion comes through, and why we need to define what it means to process an emotion,
Yeah.
because processing emotion does not mean fixing an emotion.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Emotions aren't fixable. Emotions just are.
They're just
Emotions
movable.
are
They're just you
they're
allow
just
them.
moving.
You allow them to move
They're
through.
moving through you, in and out, super chill, because at your core, who are you? You're just pure peace and love. Simply. Emotions come
That can't
in.
leave.
That can't leave. That's who you are at your core.
Right.
Always. Like that's always gonna be
So then you
there.
need to know that these energies that feel terrible or
Passing
bad,
through. They're just
they're-
passing
they
through.
can't stay.
They can't
They
stay.
can't
I
stay.
feel like everyone needs to remember that. They cannot stay.
And simplified, it's basically just saying, how can we help these emotions float through more smoothly?
Right.
That's all we're doing here.
Right.
That's all this whole conversation is about, is
Right.
how can energy move through your vessel more smoothly.
Well, one, I feel like reminding yourself, always coming back to everything's good. everything's good, it's just passing. I feel like we're like knowing that.
It's a greater
You have to know that.
You have
yeah.
to see outside of that emotion.
Yes.
Which is
and so you
the
have
most
to know
challenging
that.
and difficult thing to do in that moment.
Right, but that's why I feel like it's so important to be consistent in practicing that, because then when that happens, you're not like freaking out. You're like, oh my God, this is overtaking me. I'm never gonna be happy again. Like, you have to practice knowing that everything is always good. You're always in the perfect place.
Right.
Everything that's happening is for you, not against you.
Right.
You know, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you.
The most powerful belief you could possibly have.
Right. And the more you practice that every single day, the more when this happens, you'll be aware.
Right.
You'll be that much better every time, that much better, you know.
A lot of people, including myself at times, are walking around this earth not knowing that they're experiencing something other than themselves, which is that solid, just peace and love energy.
The first step in processing your emotions is knowing that everything is good, it's passing. Secondly, I would say being in a comfortable place where you can just feel your emotions. None but ourselves can free our mind from the mental slavery.
Right. One more note on the demon thing we were talking about earlier. Like, demons aren't separate from us. I feel like demons can only be scary. We can only fear our demons if we see them as separate than us, as these like little characters that fly in and try to like wreak havoc on our lives. I feel like a great mantra that's been helping me become more confident recently is realizing that all of these parts of me that aren't doing so hot and that are in pain are still a part of the greater part of me. They're still a part of the whole.
Yeah,
they're
I love
still,
that you said
they're
that.
still one with me. Because then this demon comes up and I'm getting anxious and I'm like, what is this energy like? It's scary. I'm getting fearful. It's like, what demon's trying to possess me? And it's not a possession. This energy has always been a part of you.
Yeah.
It's specific to you.
It was just bringing you closer to yourself.
But it just wants to be a part of that greater whole. I'm chilling over here. There's a party going on up there. Why can't I be part of that party?
Right.
And I feel like in order to welcome it into that party, you have to go down there.
Yeah.
And you have to treat it in a way where it feels like it's not missing out.
Yeah, be like, hey, it's all good. If you want to come hang out, please, like, we would love to have you. Like, that's when you get to a place of inviting them into the light.
Right. But inviting them into the light just means you have a greater awareness around that entity.
Right.
Every time that voice comes up now, you say, oh, I know you. I'm familiar with you. And you're at peace with it.
Cool
it's
now.
like
We're
it's like,
now.
hey, we could chill out all day. I'm not trying to get rid of you. Let's spend some time together, you know, and I know you'll pass. And a part of you will go to the greater whole of me.
Coming to this place of acceptance. Yeah, just choose love.
This channel is solely health, well-being in today's generation, our generation. Like, we could just stay high vibe. Like, we didn't have those fluctuations, and we could just, once you're in the high vibe, all you want to do is stay there.
Yeah.
You know, but then it's like, of course, you're gonna come down and experience that polarity,
But it's like, would you rather be sad at home? Sometimes, yeah. Or sad in
nature.
this nature? It's so pretty.
That's
Yes, sir.